Hello, it is Friday, May 29th. Where in the world did May go? I don't know. It feels like it was just March, a mere 2 months ago. We are here with Steve and Caleb. This is our final conversation about revival. We're kind of still working on whatever comes next, but we wanted to wrap up the entire conversation by asking ourselves a series of questions about revival. Now, our answers are going to be based on the conversations that we've been having with other people, the things that we've been thinking through. But we want to ask where we are seeing God work, where we are seeing revival in our personal lives and in our church, and then in society as a whole, like our nation as a whole, where and if we are seeing revival. So that's the question we are going to be trying to tackle today. And we're going to go in order of wisdom. So, Steve, you get to start us off. Where are you seeing revival happening? First of all, let's talk personally.
Yeah, so that's where I would have started. I see it personally more than anywhere else, obviously, because that's what that's where I have the most time. And so personally, I have had more time to read God's word. I have had more time to pray, what I've always tried to, well, not necessarily always, but I focus my times of prayer intermittently throughout the day, really short 1 or 2 sentence prayers, and I still do that. But I've seen more time to just kind of focus on prayer, in the mornings. And more time to read God's word. And I feel like that we've talked about how revival starts within us, and it's got to be a personal thing. So it has nothing to do with my job. It has nothing to do with the fact that I'm a minister or that I'm working for a church. And so I think that's where that starts for me. So should I go on and talk about more, or should I stop at the personal?
We'll come back around to that. I'm also curious, Caleb, where are you seeing revival personally?
Yeah, so personally, I've seen it in kind of these 2 main areas of my life. So first off, my mind throughout this entire time has just really latched on to those stories in the Old Testament where either God, himself speaking or through a prophet has made it clear to the people, like, look at your idol that you have lifted up. Look at the gods that you're serving instead of me. And I latched on to the idea because we've talked about it, we've joked about these past few weeks, but not having sports. I always knew I probably watched too many sporting events. I always knew I read too much about sports. But it really wasn't until when those were taken away that I was able to see just the prominent role they played in my life and how much of a golden path they were for me. I went through legitimate withdrawals, wanting for sports. And so really just kind of seeing that open hole that I had in kind of my life.
Yeah.
Has kind of led me to the second area in this kind of renewed focus on prayer. Prayer has always been a struggle for me. It's not, I'm not one of those people prayer comes to naturally. Prayer is always just, oh man, I'm self or whatever. But through this time, I was reading a book as just kind of about spiritual disciplines that the early church through the first few centuries practiced, and I just really latched onto this kind of idea of prayer and imaginative prayer and kind of using engaging God through that way, and just that all these church leaders for hundreds of years practice and really have been setting apart 5 minutes at a time to just engage and come to God in prayer, and so in a way that prayer is enjoyable for the first time in a long time. It doesn't feel like such a struggle or just an obligation.
Interesting. Well, for me, I think that it's almost not fair because obviously stay at home, quarantine, the disruption that has brought into every area of life it's like, for me, it's been impossible not to reflect on that on every layer. So nationally, church, and then personally. So, it's really this opportunity to ask myself what really mattered to me, what was I focused on, what was I busy doing, and I've realized that one of the things that God is helping me learn is, I mean, I love church, I love being together with people, and being able to shake hands, but I also realized that one of the things that was really important to me is the sense of affirmation or validation that I was getting from people, versus actually let's just preach what needs to be preached and let the chips fall where they may, and just not having that week to week or getting to interact with people or get a sense of well, how did my sermon go, has been good. It's been hard in some ways, but it's been really good. I mean, this is a little bit more confessional than probably anybody wants, but I'm a slow sermon developer. I'm not smart enough just to let ideas flow out of my brain and then be able to preach them. I mean, I'm pretty off the cuff in most areas of my life, but not with sermon preparation. I'm just very detail oriented, and it's a process. And there have been times even through this process where I've been working 25, 30 hours on a sermon. And then I'm yeah, but people may not even turn on YouTube on Sunday. It may not even matter at all. And then, so why am I wasting my time? And then I hear this, I don't know, the sense of God saying well, are you doing it so people will give you that validation? If that's what it's about, then you're already kind of starting from the wrong perspective. So for me, it's been hard, and I want to be with people, but there have been some revelations about who I am and maybe how God might be using me through this process personally. So that's where I am personally. How about as a church? We could go through the same order, but as a church, Steve, where are you seeing revival? Where are you seeing the spark of God in our Woodbury Church of Christ congregation?
Well, I'm not sure how much of it I see.
You're not seeing it on Zoom conference calls?
Well, so not as much. So I think what it shows is that virtually, as much as we love getting together because we already have relationship, and as much as that is helpful, it doesn't feel the need. And so what I'm hoping for revival as far as our church goes is that we recognize that we recognize the value of meeting together. We recognize the value of having brothers and sisters, in with a common bond and a common mission. And so if this quarantine has made us more thankful for that, more grateful, and realize that we do need that, and I really hope that's what's happening. Then I see not only a revival, starting because we recognize that, but then hopefully we see, hey, if the value of relationship is that great, then I need to get other people involved as well. So not just church family when we are able to get back together, but our neighbors, my neighbors, start a relationship conversationally with them, have them over for dinner when we can do that because we understand how much that, how God speaks to us through one another.
Yeah. Oh, it's such a good point. Caleb, how about yourself? Particularly maybe in the interactions you're seeing with the youth group, what are you seeing revival and church-wide?
Yeah, so I think revival church-wide that I've seen from talking to teens in the youth group and just also from observation conversations I've had is this kind of return to a focus on family and family worship and discipleship. I think for better or for worse, the church as a whole, not Woodbury specifically, just greater church entity has really we've really siloed off generations. And don't get me wrong, as a youth minister, I think there's immense value to having times where it's just the youth together to speak into their lives. But I think this time it's really forced us to kind of regroup as family units. And I know talking to the teens that they, have actually really enjoyed that. This, even when their siblings or parents annoy them, there's aspects that they've been able to grow and learn from that. And I think, just from a greater church body, just kind of realizing that we're not just equipping teens, or we're not just equipping parents, or we're not just equipping the little ones, but that we are equipping and serving the whole family unit. I think that's something I really hope that we hold on to coming out of this.
Yeah. Oh, that's such a good point too. So I love your guys' answers. I love the idea of outreach being a part of revival, and I love the idea of family focus being the part of revival coming out of this. You guys are right. It's kind of hard to know exactly how people at church are doing. I mean, like, unless we get a text or a call or an email, you're just kind of, hoping for the best or praying for the best. I know for me, I was struck a couple days ago when you were talking about William Wilberforce, and he had the personal revival in his garden as he was gardening, and God really spoke to him and encouraged him to focus on his work in abolition. For me, I'm really hopeful that people are having personal moments of revival in their living rooms while they're on a run, while they're doing dishes. I know, that's been what it is for me. I mean, both of what you guys have said have been huge. We've spent more time with our neighbors over the last couple weeks even than we had the few years prior to that, just because people are so hungry for interaction. That's been such a good thing, like you're pointing out, Steve. And the family time, I mean, that's been so good to have family dinners together and, be able to enjoy one another's company. That's been so good too. But I also pray that people are out, taking a walk through the forest, and they're just like kind of overwhelmed by the truth and reality of God, and have that sense of revival that they carry with them into the next season of life. So as a church, I'm just really praying that God is doing something in our church, that when people think about what the turning point was, they'll think back to this quarantine and they'll say, that was when God revealed to me what some of the junk in my life that needed to be dealt with, and some of the truths that needed to be, needed to go deeper into my heart. And that's where I saw the transformation. But the truth is, as a staff, we are calling and interacting with people, but we just don't know for sure what those stories are. And so we're praying that they're happening. Okay. The last question, this is maybe hard to answer for the whole nation or society, but where are you seeing revival kind of impact us as a culture with regard to quarantine, stay at home and all that? Steve, what do you think?
Yeah. I don't know. My hope, my prayer is that we that we allow this pandemic, this out of the norm, to get us to a place where we think about God more. It's kind of like we were saying. Was that yesterday where we were saying you can go away to camp, or you can go away to a mission trip. Mm-hmm. You come back, you've got this high, but we want it to last longer than that. And so I think that's a part of this too. I'm glad right now, and it wasn't in the beginning, but I'm glad that this quarantine didn't stop after 2 or 3 weeks, because I think that's what it would have been. And by now, 2 months later, we would already be back to normal. So I'm hoping that with the longer period, it's allowing it to sink deeper, and therefore we make decisions going forward. So for our country, that again, God has got to be in our thoughts, unity among Christians. And if we do that, then I don't know what the country's going to do. But if we're doing these things individually.
I think we lost Steve. Technical difficulties. We lost Steve for a second there. I'm sure that says nothing about his relative age or computer capabilities. Anyway, he's back.
Battery went dead on the laptop, plugged it back in. But anyway, so I should have been watching more closely. So you're answering the question of revival as a society. As nation, as our country, and again, don't know exactly how that's going to look, I'm hopeful for a turn to God, more serious turn, asking ourselves, do we need God in our life? Which, of course, the answer is yes. Hopefully, for Christians, we look more toward a unified effort. And then, as far as what God might do or is doing in revival, I don't know, but I think that's not as important as if I am concerned about revival individually, if we at Woodbury are concerned about revival as a church, that's just going to be those steps of obedience where God then takes that and does something that maybe we don't know or can't even imagine, and continues to do something great in our nation.
Gotcha. Caleb, what about you?
Yeah, well, I think the revival at least that's starting to hope to happen. At least I hope it's happening. It's what I'm starting to perceive some people is that across the nation, people are starting to realize, and it kind of sucks that all this stuff for it to happen, but people are starting to realize that both the Democratic Party and the Republican Party fall short of providing them the fulfillment and the restoration and the good that they're wanting. Sure, they might both have admirable qualities, but people are starting to realize that their faith and trust alone can't be in whatever political party they're in, because ultimately they're going to fall short of what they innately desire as people created in the image of God. And my prayer for that is that as people start to realize this, that they'll seek, well, what does provide what I innately know is good, what I innately know is desirable for restoration, revival, and that we know that God is the answer to that. And my prayer is that that can all unfold as people start to begin searching for what does provide what I'm looking for.
Yeah, no, it's very interesting. I think for me, it's again hard to diagnose where society as a whole is, because I think people are having different reactions. The shelter at home, quarantine reaction to COVID-19, all that kind of stuff is sort of a litmus test for like a type of person, and people have different reactions. Some people hate the expectation that they have to wear a mask in public or social distance, and other people are terrified about leaving their houses. And so you're seeing, I think you're seeing a lot more of where people are because of their reaction to all of this that's going on. I guess one of the things that I'm hopeful for more than really can diagnose is that people will realize that there is something more to life than the regular everyday distraction that people were consumed with, that it will reveal the fact that, you can't fill the void with more work or more Netflix or, social interaction. You cannot fill that void. And I know people are grateful for it. I know, like, our family, when we do have chances to interact with other humans face to face, it's exciting. You're glad to be around them. And I just hope that as a society, we realize that it was those human interactions, but more than that, that we do as humans have needs that can't be filled by, an endless ability to achieve or accumulate or gain. Like, you will not be able to sign your child up for enough sports to fill the void. You will not be able to fill your schedule with enough activities to fill the void. But there is that, but that's what humans are trying to do. And that I just pray as a society that we will realize that there is this sense of purpose and fulfillment that we can find in a relationship to God. So anyway, that is our conversations about revival. Church, if you have made it all the way to the end of our third week of discussions, well, I mean, you deserve some sort of award or medal. Congratulations. That's pretty amazing. But we're going to continue our daily interactions with the church. We don't know exactly what that's going to look like, but we feel like in the absence of being able to get together on Sundays and Wednesdays in small groups as frequently as we would like to, we still think that the daily is a good way to continue to touch base. So we'll still be doing that as we can. Thanks for your participation, guys. Caleb, Steve, appreciate the thoughts and the work, and we'll see what comes next. We'll talk to everybody soon.